Did you know the FBI believes there are as many as 25 serial killers active at any given time? However, the Murder Accountability Project believes that number to be closer to 2,000. Welcome. I'm Jay.
I'm T.
We are Fatal Blend.
This is where we talk about two things we absolutely love. A little bit of coffee and a lot of true crime. Specifically, serial killers.
And we are T-minus 3 episodes.
We are T-minus 3 episodes. If you don't know what he's talking about, it's because we're going to have a new intro. But don't get your hopes up, fellas and ladies and gentlemen and peoples, because nothing has been done yet. Spoiler alert.
It'll get done.
We'll see.
Don't you worry about it. It'll get done.
We shall see. But we're going to have a countdown of all the episodes. Because again, I say we don't have 3 episodes. We actually have 2 episodes because it's episode 52, which is 3 episodes away. So we have to have the intro completely done in the next 2 weeks. I'm not knowing if that's going to happen because Jay's got a new job that he's starting next week, and that's going to take up a lot of his time for at least the first couple weeks. So sorry in advance if it doesn't get done. Someday we'll.
But
have
I'm not working on the weekend, so I'll get it done.
Well,
I will get it done.
We shall see. Anywho.
All right. Speaking of getting it done, what are you drinking?
I'm going to throw all of you for a loop. An absolute fucking loop.
Loop it.
I am drinking a a 0 sugar Dr. Pepper. I'm not even drinking coffee.
Boo.
And I actually have this weird mental problem. And I told this to Jay. He went and bought the soda, and we don't typically drink a lot of soda in our house, but during the Super Bowl, they had a crazy good deal.
Yeah. So that'll tell you how long we've had the soda for.
We've been, true. We have a basement, and in our basement we have a gaming area where we play games. And so we were like, it would be nice if we had soda because also at the Super Bowl, whatever. So he goes to the store and he calls me. He's like, what do you want? And I said, diet, because I drink diet, everything sugar-free stuff, right? And he's like, do you want diet Dr. Pepper or 0 sugar Dr. Pepper? And I was like, I don't really care. I mean, I think I like diet Dr. Pepper better, but I don't care. So he comes home with this 0 sugar Dr. Pepper, and I took it and I drank it. And I was like, I just wish you would have gotten the diet Dr. Pepper. He goes, oh, you like it better? And I go, actually, no. It tastes exactly the same as diet Dr. Pepper, but it's the visual of it not being diet Dr. Pepper bothers me to where I don't want to drink the stuff.
It's mentally. You don't.
Yeah,
like
mentally, I'm like,
diet.
it's like a Dr. Pepper, which I haven't drank a regular soda.
Years.
I mean, I do drink ginger ale sometimes. That's the only thing I will drink, and I only drink the little cans, like what you get on the airplanes. But
and only Seagrams.
But I haven't drank regular soda like Dr. Pepper, Mountain Dew, the Pepsi since probably high school. I've drank diet everything since then because I just don't like it. I don't like how sweet they are.
I mean, we also just don't do a lot of soda anymore, so.
I've never been a big soda person. Yeah. Jay is a big soda person. I just have not. I'm not. I'm a coffee person, but right now we're recording this in the evening and I'm drinking a 0 sugar Dr. Pepper and it's delicious. What are you drinking?
My Diet Coke. After I gave you shit.
He said, boo.
Yep.
He lies.
But I'm drinking the old Diet Coke.
And I know. Save your shit, people. We know diet's not very good for you.
Not.
Mind your business. I'm not choosing what you drink. You don't choose what we drink.
Mind your business, people.
Mind your business. Okay. Anything else you want to talk about before we get into this episode?
I don't think so.
All right. So we are talking now. Some of you may have actually heard this name because the name sounds familiar. And I couldn't put my finger on why it sounded familiar. And then I realized why it did after, and you'll figure it out. But some of you might actually know who this person is. He's technically a serial killer, but it's different. He's different. So we're talking about Richard Kuklinski. Now, Richard, His nickname was the Iceman. He killed anywhere from 6 to over 100 people.
Huge difference.
His date of murders is 1949 to 1986. The locations of the murders are New York and New Jersey. His method of murder is shooting, stabbing, poisoning, and beating. And the characteristics, he's a contract killer. When I first got this one, I was like, shit, do I really want to do this? Because he's a hitman, right? And in my personal brain, to me, a hitman is not a serial killer. Like, I just don't think hitmen are serial killers. So in my mind, it's hard for me to want to talk about a hitman because I just feel there's like such a psychological difference between a serial killer and a hitman. However, the definition of a serial killer is somebody who kills 2 or more people with a cooling off period.
It fits.
A contract killer or hitman would be somebody who does that. And I will point out that not all of his murders are contract kills. Like, not all of them are murders that he did for somebody else. So we're going to get into it a little bit. We're going to get into his background. So Richard was born April 11th, 1935 in New Jersey, and his parents were Stanley and Anna. Now, he was the second of 4 children, and his father was a brakeman for the railroad, like at the railroad, and he was a violent ass alcoholic, like some of the best, you know, just drank a lot, beat the shit out of his wife and his children on a regular basis. So Anna also was a very strict parent. She worked at a meat packing plant, and she also would beat the absolute shit out of her children at any time that she deemed it necessary. And at one point, she even broke a broom handle while beating Richard with the broom. So it's not like your typical, like back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, you spanked the shit out of your kids, you know, whatever. It's not like that. It's legit, like, abusive as hell. Now, Richard also recalls a time when his mom actually tried to kill his dad with a knife. So just like toxic overall. Their fucking household was a nightmare to live in. Legitimately a nightmare. Richard does admit, because he's talked to people. So he does admit that he actually killed dogs and cats as a young man. And that was because this helped him cope and deal with the anger that he felt towards like his family.
Yeah, so he'd take the aggression out on other things.
Yes.
Than on his family.
Yes. Well, also when you're a child, who are you going to take it out, right? Like a lot of the times you might take it out on like your younger siblings, right? Or people at school. But for him, killing animals was his release, as a lot of serial killers are actually. So at the age of 5 years old, so Richard is 5 years old, and Richard's older brother is 7 years old. His name is Florian. And he was actually beaten to death by his father. They call the cops, obviously, because he dies. And Anna actually tells the medics that Florian had fallen down the stairs and died.
Well, the old falling down the stairs routine.
And this leads to no charges ever being brought against Stanley or Anna for anything. So if you can just imagine at 5 years old, you have a really nightmarish household and your 7-year-old brother is beaten to death. That's going to set you up for some shit. Now, shortly after this incident, Stanley does leave the home. Like, he actually leaves. This leaves the children, including Richard, by themselves to take care of themselves. Like, they take care of each other. Anna's really not the best of mothers either. She's kind of a pile of shit. And so these kids are basically fend for themselves. Now, after the 8th grade, Richard ends up dropping out of school because it's just not for him. This actually leads him to taking on like odd jobs. And he also started to dabble in some criminal activities. As he gets older, he actually ends up getting involved in selling bootleg porno films and like bootleg Disney films and like copyrighted shit that he's basically copying and then selling to people. But not like one. It's not like, here, let me sell you this one. It's like batches, like the movie Snow White. He's got like 150 Snow Whites that he would sell to somebody who's like maybe got their own video store or who wants to sell, you know, like
so
it's
he
like
did
that.
It in bulk.
Oh yeah, and it was like a legit thing. Like he was legitimately doing it. Now this the pornographic films that he was selling actually ended up getting him involved with organized crime. And if you don't know what organized crime is like the mob or mafia or I think that's all you call them. I don't know why I said
anything where there's an organization doing
I guess.
crime.
I don't know why I just kept going, but So it ends up getting him into that because he ends up meeting a man through the fact that the guy was buying a shit ton of pornographic films from him that was associated with one of the crime families. Pretty sure it was the Gambino family, but we'll get there. I just couldn't remember which one it was, but I'm pretty sure that's who his like initial thing was. Anyways, now Richard goes on and he actually ends up getting married to a woman named Linda. They have 2 sons. Their marriage does not last though. So off he goes, and he does actually end up working at a trucking company while also doing his bootlegging. And he actually meets a woman named Barbara, and they get married in 1961, and they actually have 2 daughters and a son. So if you're keeping track, he's got 5 children at this point. So his family, his neighbors, his friends, they are all under the impression that he is actually a wholesale distributor, which actually he kind of was.
Is. I mean,
he's bootlegging it, but he kind of
wrong.
is. Now, his wife, though, Barbara, at some point kind of has suspicions that something's not quite 100% right with what he tells her he's doing for a living, because he would have large amounts of cash sometimes. He would leave her in the middle of the night sometimes, and she would never ask questions because he also had a really bad temper. So she just kind of let it be. Now, Barbara actually described him as having 2 sides. He had a good Richie and a bad Richie.
Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Kind of, yeah. So good Richie was actually a hardworking provider, an affectionate and loving father and husband who loved to spend time with his family. As a matter of fact, they went on trips to Disneyland and all these things where he genuinely just like enjoyed the moments with his family. But sporadically, bad Richie would come out. And bad Richie would have super unpredictable fits of rage. He would smash furniture and he would be extremely violent. He would actually be physically abusive to his wife several times. He actually broke her nose 3 different times. And one time he actually tried to run her over with his car. So he would go through like these crazy things. And he was super emotionally abusive to his children, but he was never physically abusive. And that was actually, he said that. And Barbara actually corroborated that and said he never physically touched the kids.
Well, that's good to know.
But as far as emotionally, here's just one example of how he emotionally abused his children. His daughter had come home late from being out, probably past curfew, and he took it upon himself to kill her dog right in front of her as punishment. So he didn't physically abuse her, but that's some shit.
That is some dark
That's some shit. And so that's the kind of stuff that he would do to his children. Now, at one point, Barbara actually is like done with this. Obviously, it's a very fucking, there's like such a good side, but then there's such a bad side. So she tells him she wants to separate. She wants to see other people because she's kind of not feeling this anymore. And at that point, Richard stabs her with this like super sharp object. And I don't even think to this day she knows what it was, but it was so sharp that she actually said, I didn't even feel it go in, like at first.
Damn.
So he stabs her with a super sharp object and tells her that she is his. And if she leaves, he would kill their entire family. So she obviously stayed with him until 1993. He does get arrested before that, though. So that's probably why she divorced him finally. But he wouldn't basically let her divorce. Yeah. Now, as an adult, he actually also became a pool shark at one point. like pool shark.
Jack of trades.
And he also had no problem killing anyone that would upset him. Like, if you pissed him off, he had no problem killing you. This is what he says. Now, he also said that he had a rule, though, that he would not kill women. Like, he would never kill a woman. But he would beat the shit out of his wife, but he would never kill. Like, he would have never killed his wife. He would never kill a woman. So these men that would upset him, what he would do is he would shoot them. He'd stab them. He would bludgeon them to death. And then he would either dump their bodies in the Hudson River or he would leave them exactly where he killed them. Now, this ends up leading him to being a hired hitman for multiple crime families. So not just one. He actually ends up becoming a contract killer for multiple crime families. And the thing is, there was one story that I read that had said the reason why they wanted him to be the first crime family that he got hooked up with was actually because he had owed money to somebody within the crime family, and they basically didn't get the money from him. So they went to him, as they do, and tried to get the money from him by like beating the shit out of him. And he actually he's like a 6'5", 300-pound dude. So he's like a big ass dude. And he sat there and took that shit. That moment, one of the people that worked with this crime family was like, hold the fuck on.
Wait a minute, I got an idea.
Wait a minute. We think we have a better idea of what we could be using you for, and this might help you work off your debt type thing, right? Now, the crime families that he supposedly worked with, I apologize sincerely because I know for sure that I only know how to actually pronounce one of them, but I'm going to try. So the Genovese family, the Gambino family, and the Decalvalcante family, they're all Italian mob, or not mob, but crime families. Again, he ends up working with all three of these in some sort of capacity as a hitman because literally his size, they were like, you are definitely, you are, because 300 pounds,
go get my money.
6'5", 300 pounds, you're not that fat. You're not a fat man.
Nah, and especially back then.
You're a big man, but you are not a fat man. You are solid.
It's a lot more common now for somebody that size, and it's not even that common.
Yeah, exactly. So this is where the murder starts. So believe it or not, Richard's first actual murder was when he was 13 years old. So not when he was with the crime family. So this is why I'm saying not all of his murders have to do with the crime families. Now, there was a gang of boys that rolled around his town, and they called themselves the Project Boys. For those of you that don't know, the projects are like really poor parts of town. So these boys, they grew up in the projects. They called themselves the Project Boys. They were not a very nice group of boys. And they were really mean. They were assholes to pretty much everybody. And they would actually beat up Richard like pretty regularly. They would find him and beat him up. Well, after one particular beating, Richard got really fucking tired of getting his ass whooped. And so he actually found a piece of wood, and he finds Charlie, who actually is one of the lead members of the gang. And he beats the shit out of him until he doesn't wake up, literally killed him. And then he chopped off his fingers and removed his teeth and then dumped his body over the bridge so he couldn't be identified when they found his body.
At 13 years old.
At 13 years old.
Damn.
Now, he also then continues to seek revenge on the gang with a metal pipe. And so he finds this like a metal pole type thing. He has this metal pole, and he literally goes around the neighborhood, starts finding these gang members, and starts beating the shit out of them with this metal pole. Now, he doesn't kill any of these other members, but he almost kills quite a few of them. Now, it was in that moment that he was like, cool, I got this. Okay. So that's his reported first murder, is killing the neighborhood gang bully. Now, no other real murders came out until he was in his 40s, which would lead me to believe that's probably he might be with contract killing at that point. However, let me explain to you, and you can just judge yourself because it doesn't say whether these were actual contract killers or not. Only one of them does it actually say. So on January 30th of 1980, Richard kills 42-year-old George Maliband. Now, George Maliband was meeting up with Richard because he was going to buy a load of videos from Richard. And George's body is actually found in a 55-gallon drum on February 5th, 1980. And on the day he was killed, he was actually carrying $27,000 on him because he was going to be buying these videos cash. Now, Richard ends up claiming that this shooting was just business. Like when they asked him about it, he was like, yeah, it was just business. So I don't know if that means business as in a hit or a business as in he just wanted the $27,000 and didn't want to fork over the things. And so he just killed him. I'm not sure.
I mean, honestly, it could go either way.
It really could. Then on March 14th, 1980, Richard kills Detective Calabro with a shotgun to the head. Now, Calabro was actually driving super slow through a snowstorm during that time, which is why he was able to do this. Then in July 1981, 50-year-old Louis Masque had a meeting with Richard to talk about another videotape deal as well. So he was going to talk to him about getting some videos. After he shows up to this meeting or whatever, he ends up disappearing. Literally, nobody hears from him again. Well, at the time that he went to this meeting with Richard, he was said to have had $95,000 hidden in the panels of his car because he was getting ready to buy a bunch of bootleg videos.
Damn, that's a lot of money.
porno. I mean, bootleg porno probably goes for a lot, especially if
Yeah.
you own like, I mean, think about it. If you own a store, like one of the, what do you call them? Like exotic stores or whatever. If you can get a bunch of porn for like half the price of what you pay for it,
Oh, yeah.
hell yeah, you're going to do that. So he disappears. Well, his body is actually found 15 months later. And he had been shot in the head, and then he was stored in a freezer and wrapped in plastic bags. Now, when his body was found, there were ice crystals inside of his body tissue still, and this is actually what led to his nickname, the Iceman, because it had been found out that a lot of his murders, he would freeze them before he disposed of the body for like a couple of months so that like they disappear, nobody could find them, and then all of a sudden their body would appear somewhere. So it would make it really hard for a detective to try to figure out who did what, right? Just based off timelines. Then on April 29th, 1982, 51-year-old Paul Hoffman disappears after supposedly having a meeting with Richard. Now, Paul Hoffman is a pharmacist. He also had $22,000 on him when he went missing. And the thing was, he planned on meeting Richard because he was actually going to buy prescription drugs from Richard to resell in his pharmacy. So he wasn't just dabbling in bootleg
he was
videos.
doing a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Now, his body has never been found. But according to Richard, so this is what Richard says happened. Richard says that he beat Hoffman to death with a tire iron and put him in a 55-gallon drum and left him outside of a motel in Little Ferry. Okay. And then he said one day he went by the motel and the drum was gone, and he has literally no idea what happened to the body. So somebody took this 55-gallon drum that had this body in it.
Jesus.
And it disappeared. Right? Like, what? Now, by this time, so by 1982, Richard is like, first of all, he's a hitman for the different crime families. He's still doing his stuff, but then he decides, you know what makes more sense than anything is if I created my own gang of burglars. Okay, like that just makes the most sense. Like, let me create
progression,
a group of people that help me burglarize, steal, and then like I'm just gonna make more money that way because the whole like bootlegging and probably wasn't as popular now, and so he's like, I gotta do this. So he creates this gang of people that are a burglary gang. Now in December of 1982, one of his gang members is actually arrested, and they're like questioning him about a bunch of stuff, and he won't speak for quite some time. He does eventually actually become an informant, but it takes like a really long time for him to become an informant. Well, once he becomes an informant on this burglary gang, he is then put in protective custody, and then an arrest warrant is issued for a man named Gary Smith and a man named Daniel Deppner. Now, Richard finds out about this whole thing, and he's like, he tells Gary and Daniel, like, y'all need to lay low. Like, you need to lay low. I'm going to put you up in a hotel, and you guys need to fucking just chill, because obviously for him, there's no arrest warrant out for Richard. So this informant did not obviously turn on Richard, but he did give names of two other gang members that are part of the burglary gang. And so in his mind, he's like, well, if they go in, how do I know they're not going to turn on me?
Right.
I need them to lay low and like chill out.
Yep.
Well, Smith ends up leaving from the hotel one night because he wants to go visit his daughter. Now, Richard is worried at this point that while he's out visiting his daughter, that he might actually go to the cops and decide to be an informant as well to kind of save his ass. So he decides that he's going to take care of Gary Smith himself. So in December of 1982, 42-year-old Gary Smith is killed, and he was actually fed a burger with cyanide poison. But Richard said that shit was taking way too long. He did not die as fast as I thought, so I just went ahead and strangled him with the lamp cord in the hotel as well. Or motel.
Okay.
Now, his body is actually found underneath a bed in the motel that he was killed in. A new fear has been unlocked for me.
Always check the bed.
Because what's really crazy is multiple people actually stayed in that motel before his body was found. Okay. He was in there dead under the bed they were sleeping in. Now, quite a few people would go to this motel room and then they'd go to leave and
like it stinks.
They would tell the like people like, yeah, that room has a funny smell. Like it's fine. It's like an odd smell, but I don't know. They keep getting these complaints. They go in the room, they're cleaning, they're doing all these things. Finally, somebody goes and says, that room, I cannot stay in there. It's awful. Like it smells terrible. So the manager of the hotel goes into the room and he is searching and searching. And he looks under the bed and he finds this body. His body was found December 27th and he was killed in like the very beginning of December. So he was in there for probably like 25-ish days.
Yeesh.
And people were sleeping on the bed above him. Like, now I got a new fear. So anytime we go to the hotel, sorry, Jay, you are going to be looking under the bed. You're going to lift up the fucking bed. If it's a platform bed, I want to make sure nothing's underneath. Because if you lift them motherfuckers up, there's like an empty box under there. Make sure there's no bodies in there.
Trying to throw my back out?
Listen.
I'll only do it if it stinks.
No. It's a new thing. This shit traumatized me. Anyways, there is a dispute on this next one. So Daniel Deppner, who is the other gang member that had the warrant out for him, he also gets murdered. However, the dates are a little weird because what they know is that sometime between February and May of 1983, so they don't know exactly when, they know that Daniel Deppner was murdered. And they know that they know this because they found him, but they found him in this man, Rich Patterson's apartment. Now, Rich Patterson is actually the fiance of one of Richard's daughters. Okay. So Richard, basically Patterson would go out of town for business a lot and work. And so Richard basically told Patterson like, hey, I need some guys to borrow your apartment, blah, blah, blah. So he tells Deppner, go there, stay there. Nobody's going to fucking look for you at this apartment. Live there, stay there. So somehow, some way during that time, Daniel Deppner is murdered. Well, Richard actually ends up telling Patterson, hey, you know that guy that I had that was staying at your apartment? Well, he was in trouble he was in trouble with the police. So that's kind of what he was doing. And, he's hiding in your apartment and someone broke in and killed him while he was at your apartment. And so he gets Patterson to help him move the body. Well,
probably because Patterson was probably fearful for his life.
Fair. Now, Deppner's body is found May 14th, 1983. So that's why they're saying he went missing as of February. So they're saying anytime between February and May 14th, he could have been killed at any point. And actually how he was found is a bicyclist. He found a group of vultures surrounding something and he walked over and it was a body. Now, the cause of death is unknown, however, or it is unknown. They don't know how he died, but the medical examiner did find signs of poison in his bloodstream and it also looked like he had been strangled. So it almost sounds like he was killed the same way that his buddy was.
Yep, sounds familiar.
So Richard says that he used multiple methods to murder. He would use guns, knives, poison, strangulation. He also claims that he would often dismember the bodies and bury them, or sometimes he would put them in the trunk of a car and then let them get crushed at the junkyard, which also
sounds like right out of the movies.
Also is really fucking brilliant. As I read that, I was like, well, shit, that makes a lot of sense.
Have you not watched mob movies? They do that shit all the time.
I don't, but that makes sense because once them bitches are crushed, you can't get into them. And they don't look in the trunks and shit I don't know if they do, but I would assume they don't look in the trunks before they smush the cars.
If you know a guy.
Well, that's it, right? If you know a guy.
I know a guy.
And sometimes he would actually just leave the body where he committed the murder. Because I was like, whatever. Now, he did explain that sometimes he would use an ice cream truck to store the bodies for a period of time. Now, his reason for this was that it would mess up the medical examiner's time of death. And he also became friends with a man named Robert Prong. Now, Robert Prong was known as Mr. Softy. And Richard claims that Prong is actually the one who taught him how to use poison to kill. And Prong was actually found shot to death in his truck in 1984. I'm not saying, but I'm saying.
Yeah.
There just
Thanks
might
for teaching
be some,
me. Time to go.
I'm not saying, but I mean, again, his whole point of the ice cream truck thing was can you think about how that would fuck up time of death? You kill somebody, you put them in a freezer for 6 months, and then you take them out and leave them out in the world. By the time they get to them, they look like they've, other than the ice crystals, they look like they've been freshly killed, first of all.
Yeah.
And second of all, now you have no idea how long that person's been dead. So you can't even come up with anything. It's fucking pretty, not giving ideas to people. It's pretty fucking.
No, but then you can have an alibi. And I'm sure as the times have changed, it might be easier to track that down now. I don't know.
I don't know because, again, this is like the time of death is always crucial in where they start looking at the timeline for who that person has interacted with. And if you can't really narrow down a true time of death because of the fact that this person was murdered a year ago but was in a freezer the whole time, you're never going to find who did it. But alas, he does get caught. He does. So on December 17th, 1986, Richard is arrested. Now, they had an investigation going for 6 years to try to catch him. Now, they did have some help from the informant from his burglary gang who already kind of set them on the path. Now, that informant and this whole like path of things actually does lead them to link him to 5 murders through not just the burglary stuff. They were actually able to link him to 5 different murders. And this investigation that they had actually involved the Attorney General's office, the New Jersey State Police, and the Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco and Firearms. Now, the operation also involved an undercover officer for 18 months. So they like did all this shit, and then they threw an undercover officer in there for 18 months. Now, basically, he gets close to Richard. He ends up getting close to Richard. Well, close enough that he talks to Richard about a lot of different things. And one of the things that Richard talks about is how he actually kept a body in a freezer for 2.5 years. So he admits to this guy, this undercover cop, that he knows how to kill people and he knows how to get rid of them. And also, by the way, I kept a body for 2.5 years in a freezer. It's a gloaty thing.
Damn.
Now the undercover cop,
time.
yeah, it is a long time. That is a long time.
Yeah.
The undercover cop also has recording of Richard telling him how he would kill because the undercover cop had said, I kind of want you to kill this wealthy cocaine dealer that I need to get rid of. And he has recordings of Richard saying to him, oh, I can kill the cocaine dealer. And then he goes into detail to the undercover cop exactly how he would kill him. And then there's also a recording of him talking about how he had actually killed a man with cyanide in his burger. And he said he had plans to kill a couple more rats. So he admits to all this stuff to this undercover cop. So they use that information to get to him.
Best way to get rid of a rat.
Cyanide. But I mean, he laughed, I guess, I guess he was joking. Not joking, but he was laughing when he was telling about the burger incident. I could see how it might be funny to him.
Yeah, because he's getting rid of the rats.
No, well, yes, I guess. Now, on December 17th, 1986, he actually meets up with the undercover cop because his deal with the cop was, you need to bring me cyanide and I will go kill your cocaine dealer. So the undercover cop shows up, gives him cyanide, tells him okay, it's a go ahead. Let's do this. So in the middle of this meeting, the plan was that once he had the cyanide, they'd just arrest him. But he was I need to take a walk. I need to take a walk with your, I'm going to go check and make sure, I'm going to leave. He said, let me go for a hot minute. I'll be back. Okay, fine. So off he goes. Well, what he's doing is he actually takes this poison, this cyanide, and he goes up to a random dog and feeds it to the random dog. Because he wants to make sure it's really cyanide. And he finds out very quickly that it is not cyanide because the dog does not get sick or die. So he ends up going, fuck you, I'm not coming back to you. So he did not go back to their meeting spot. And he actually decides he's just going to fucking head home because he's not doing it. He, in his brain, has called off this kill.
Yeah.
Because he's something's not right. I smell something fishy. 2 hours later, he does get arrested. So him and his wife are driving somewhere. They were driving somewhere and his car gets surrounded by multiple police officers and the whole entire street's blocked off. And there's the whole task force that was deemed the Operation Iceman shows up, surrounds his vehicle, and arrests him. Now, in 1988, Richard is convicted of 5 murders, and he is sentenced to 5 life sentences, and he would not be eligible for parole until he was over 100 years old. So he is in jail forever. Now, in 2003, he gets tried for the murder of Detective Peter Calabro. And he is actually convicted of that murder as well, and he is sentenced to another 30 years in prison. Then, in March 5th, 2006, Richard suffers a cardiac arrest and dies, and he was 70 years old. But there's more. There were reports that while he was in the hospital, he had told the doctors that if he flatlined, he wanted to be resuscitated. Barbara, his ex-wife now at this point, because she had divorced him.
Right.
She had actually showed up at the hospital because they told her, like, he had a heart condition, to be fair. He was diagnosed with a heart condition. And they told her, like, there is a chance he's not making it. And she goes, okay, I'll go in and I'll say my goodbyes. So she goes in, says her goodbyes. And as she's leaving, she says to them, I would like to sign a do not resuscitate order, a DNR for him. And they're like, okay. So she signs a DNR for him when she leaves, even though he said he wanted to be resuscitated.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that's even legally binding.
Probably because she might have had power of attorney.
Yeah, maybe.
Right? Because he was already, he's 70 years old and he was already doing some really serious, like he had some really serious heart issues. And if you have a power of attorney that is your power of attorney present, they can make medical decisions for you. So my guess, because the other part is when he said, I want to be resuscitated. They had already said that he was like incoherent half the time. So he was kind of coming in and out of consciousness.
Right.
So that is why that would be legally binding, because she would have had the power to be able to make these decisions. Now, a week before he dies, the hospital actually calls Barbara again because he's still in the hospital. And they say, we noticed that you signed a DNR. Do you want to change your mind? Because he has kind of said that he would like to go in and out, that he would like to be resuscitated. And she said, no, I don't blame you, Barbara. I just don't blame you. Like, what are you supposed to do?
And it may be something that they had talked about in the past.
Maybe.
So.
I don't, maybe. She does call their marriage the worst mistake of her life. So it could just have all been a final fuck you. I mean, to be fair. There's also more. There were thoughts surrounding his death. So before his death, he was set to testify against Sammy the Bull Gravano. And for anybody out there, yeah, the same Gravano as in Mob Wives. This is how come I knew the crime families, is because I was an avid watcher of Mob Wives, and Sammy the Bull's daughter is on Mob Wives. So that name was like, I was like, I know that name. So he was set to testify against Sammy the Bull Gravano. And what he was going to testify for is he was going to testify that he killed Detective Calabro at the order of Sammy. Now, Richard tells his family, as he's like not feeling well and in the hospital, he tells them, I'm pretty sure I'm being poisoned by the Gambino family because of my upcoming testifying. I'm pretty sure they're killing me. That's what he tells them.
But you said it was for the Gravano.
Gravano, Sammy the Bull Gravano worked in the Gambino family. Okay. He was one of the people that was in the Gambino crime family.
Now that makes sense.
Yeah, and so he was pretty sure the Gambino family was coming after him because of the testifying. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I don't know. But what I do know is that an autopsy was done on his body because he kept claiming that he was being poisoned. So an autopsy was done on his body because they were like, well, And they found zero poison in his body. And it was determined that he literally died from his heart complications. Like he was not being poisoned. Now, after his death, all of the charges were dropped against Sammy the Bull Gravano, though, because they had nothing now to charge him with. So
what a coincidence.
That is the story, the actual story of the Iceman, Richard Kuklinski. Would you like to hear the shots?
That's what I've been waiting for, because we talked about 6, but you said over 100.
Yes.
So I'm curious what those are.
Okay, so later in life, Richard deemed his mother as a cancer. Like, he was in an interview, because again, once he gets arrested, he does a shit ton of interviews. This is why I'm saying, like, some of you might have actually heard him. He has interviews, fucking movies, like all kinds of shit, because he was like diarrhea of the mouth as soon as he was arrested. He's like, well, but I mean, think about it. You're in jail for the rest of your life, so fucking spill your secrets.
Might as well talk about it.
So he says that he deemed his mother a cancer who destroyed anything she touched. He also said, hello, my mother produced 2 killers, me and my brother. We're going to get to that. In 1970, Richard's brother Joseph was convicted of raping a 12-year-old girl and murdering her by throwing her and her dog off the top of a 5-story building. The dog survived and actually found like people to come help the girl, but she died. Now, Richard was asked about his brother's crime, and his response was, we come from the same father and apparently the same mother, because he blames his mother for that too. I mean, to be fair, I'm not excusing their behaviors, but
Oh, hell
Jesus,
no.
what kind of people did you expect to come out of that nightmare family? In an interview with a reporter, he was asked, "Do you liken yourself to an assassin?" And his response was, "Assassin? It sounds so exotic. I was just a murderer."
I mean, at least he's telling the truth. He's like, look, I'm just putting it out there.
Now, according to
Facts.
I know. Now, according to Richard, it was the murder of Charlie, the gang member when he was a teenager, that taught him that it was better to give than to receive. And he said from that point on, whenever someone made me feel bad, I would hurt them. Fair.
I can see the correlation for sure.
I can too. He also said that he had made a rule for himself that he would never harm women or children. So literally, he would not murder women or children. And he actually tells of one time that he was prepping to kill a man, and the man was begging for his life. And so Richard tells the guy, like, all right, you got 30 minutes, pray to God. And if he intervenes, you'll live. Now, when he tells this interaction, he actually says, but God never showed up and he never changed the circumstances. And that was that. It wasn't too nice. That's one thing I shouldn't have done that one. I shouldn't have done it that way.
I mean, at least he admits it's fucked up.
And then that is actually one of the only murders that Richard has shown any remorse for. Like, he actually, when he said he wasn't
probably
laughing.
He's probably not remorseful of the murder, just how he did it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it wasn't like he was like, I should have killed him. He was like, I probably shouldn't have let him think that he was going to live. Like,
Right.
that was mean. Like, that's not nice. Richard also, like I said, he did a lot of interviews while he was in prison, like a ton. And at one point, he actually even claimed that he was responsible for the death of Jimmy Hoffa. But then later, he was interviewed about that exact situation. He was like, I know nothing about that. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
He's like, I'm just fucking with you.
And also, there is no evidence to support that he had anything to do with the death of Jimmy Hoffa. Now, my final shot is Richard has claimed to have killed upwards of 200 people. There is no proof to it. However, one of the detectives that worked on his investigation back then came out and said he's an extremely dangerous person because he literally has zero remorse for anything he does. And he is like the epitome of a contract killer. It's a business. It's a job. And it does not bother him. And he got really good at it. He was really good at how to hide bodies. He'd chop fingers off. He'd rip their teeth out so they can't be identified. He was very good at that. And the guy said, I firmly believe that he's probably killed close to 300 people.
Well, I mean, you figured from the age of 13 and then all the way
exactly
into his 40s.
You can't tell me
Right.
he didn't kill somebody in that time, because he said that specific time was when he decided like he was no longer going to take this shit from people. And he was going to harm anybody who fucking wronged him.
And I doubt he was just walking around old normal Joe Schmo.
Actually, what do you mean?
No, like between 13 and in his 40s, that he was just living the normal everyday life, like not doing anything bad.
Oh, like not getting into trouble. Yeah,
Right.
no, but there was just nothing like, and again,
nothing
the ones
that people can prove.
Well, and the ones that he admits to, the reason I think that he admitted to the 6 was because that's what they charged him with. Like, they didn't charge him with 100 or 200 people. They charged him with only the 6 that they ever thought he potentially had killed.
And if he's upwards 200s into 300s, he's not going to recall who these people are.
Especially if it's, like he says,
Yeah, if it's a
he's
contract.
a hitman.
Like,
He doesn't give a shit what your
Nah.
name is. He just knows that you are the person that has to end up dead somehow. And again, nobody suspected him for a really long time because he had a whole ass family. And he even said, like, he said the only thing that he regrets in this whole entire thing is that he harmed his children.
yeah.
And he was like, I just hope my family can forgive me. That's literally all he cares about. And so I can see how his neighbors, his friends, his family had no fucking idea. He might have had a temper, but I can see how they would not for 1 second think this was this guy.
Right.
So anyways, that's Richard Kuklinski.
Yeah.
Kuklinski. I thought, like I said, he's technically a serial killer because he's killed a lot of people.
He says it. He's a murderer.
But he is. I mean, he
Right?
very
So,
much was like, yeah, I'm just
Definitely
a
by
murderer.
definition,
I'm
it is a
nothing
serial
special,
killer.
right? Although I would venture to guess that if he really killed that many people, there's something definitely special, bro. Because the fact that you could kill that many people and not get caught, and the only reason, think about this, the only reason he got caught was because he decided to create his own gang of burglars. Had he never created a gang of burglars, he never would have been caught.
Nah, he would have just kept going.
Because the whole reason that they even connected him to the murders in the first place was because of the burglary stuff. Because that's what kind of put him on their radar. So it was his own fault that he ended up getting caught because of this exact, like, can you imagine how many more people he probably would have killed? This is the story. It's a contract killer. Very different for me because there's also that, like, again, it's hard to wrap my brain around the fact that a hired hitman or contract killer is considered a serial killer, but the technical definition is he is. And to be fair, I would say I don't know if he liked to kill because he liked to kill. I think honestly there was just like a power to it. Like he could do it. It didn't bother him. So he did.
And he got paid for it.
And he got paid a lot of money for it. And, you know, I mean, I guess when you are raised in a awful fucking household, you probably become numb to that kind of stuff. It probably desensitizes you. Anyways.
That's number 49.
Yep, that's number 49.
Getting that much closer to 52.
Yep, which means it's also that much closer to our 1 year, which is crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy to
think. And let's celebrate by getting more followers, more people downloading, more people listening.
Not that you haven't already been
y'all
doing
are killing it.
Y'all
are killing it.
We be getting some good things, so I'm not mad about it at all.
Nope.
We still do it for free, and that's okay. I'll do this for free forever. I just like doing it.
Yep.
So, anyways,
it's fun. All right, and with that, we will say.
Oh, sorry. I guess this is where I say.
Oh wait, hold on.
I guess this is the part where I say goodbye.
And I say bye bye.